Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here, along with Hunter Brody here on 97.3 ESPN. We are only here for an hour. That's right, a power hour. The Sports Bash college football bowl action coming up at the top of the next hour. So, but you've been here working all day anyway, so have I. So people don't know that we do other work aside from being on the radio.
It's been a long morning. I'm out of my comfort zone because I normally get here when we do the show 2 to 6, and that's when I am used to and accustomed to diving into what we need to. But I'm like thrown in for a loop getting here at 10 a.m., doing this, doing that. I don't know how to operate.
I was thrown off by the fact that we had the heat lamps on here in the studio.
You were baffled by that.
Well, they weren't on yesterday, and you were here with me yesterday. So I don't know when they got turned on, but apparently everything's my fault around here. So.
That's not true, Josh. Look, we got some 76ers action tonight.
Starting tonight. Wizards, 7 o'clock here on 97.3 ESPN. I know, I'm excited. I was listening to this morning on my drive in here. I was listening to Paul Hudrick's podcast this morning. 97.3 ESPN.com Sixers Insider. He's going to be at the game tonight covering it.
I can't wait to see what this new team looks like. And let's be realistic. You're not going to know based off of one basketball game. I like to start out a season with a 20-game sample size as really developing my first assessment on the squad. Do you think that's fair? And the way that I'll relate this is I'm a music guy. I love hip-hop. I listen to the new rap game, and I follow artists and when they drop albums. Well, I listen to albums straight through. I like to hear track 1 all the way through the last track. But I won't tell anyone how I truly feel about the album until I listen to it 3 straight times from track 1 all the way through. Well, that's the same thing with this basketball team. Until I see 20 games of this squad, I won't have my first real assessment. Your thoughts on that?
I am not going to make grandiose judgments about the 76ers off of game 1. That's 100% for sure. Because last year, when they started the season with those first 5 games, and they looked incredible on defense, right? And then they just ran into a wall the rest of the year. So I'm not going to get excited about one game, game 3, game 5. I need more of a sample size. Just like I'm not going to get excited about the Nets game last night because, you know what? For one game, that team looked out of the park. But I texted a buddy of mine last night. It looked like the Warriors' young guys were a little bit overwhelmed.
Are we starting to see, and look, there's a lot of injuries in play here with Klay Thompson, with Draymond Green, so you do have to put that in perspective. But are we seeing the new era of Golden State Warriors basketball where they are not at the top anymore? They are not going to be competing with the other teams. This is who they are. Maybe that's a little unfair based off of the injuries, like I said, but how do you now view this Golden State squad?
I view them as a team that's probably not going to hit the over on their win total, that's for sure. I mean...
But even in terms of, let's say, playoffs, where do they even fall in that aspect?
That's not a playoff team last night. That's
no,
for sure.
Definitely not.
That's a team that finishes in the bottom 3 or 4 of the Western Conference.
And they're drafting high again.
It's a possibility. Listen, people were asking last night about, is the Warriors' window over, right? Is the Warriors... Is their run over? If they get a high draft pick, the window might just reopen.
That's true. Right. Wiseman, you got his first action last night.
And he did look good.
Definitely.
He had moments where he looked like the number 2 pick in the draft, right? He looked like a legitimate high draft pick. But outside of him and Curry, let's be realistic. Wiggins, he didn't have a great night last night. Kelly Oubre was streaky. Pascal had his moments. But the Warriors, they don't look like a playoff team. And if you're not a playoff team, you know what? Maybe it's a good thing Klay isn't back. Maybe Klay and Steph would have overcome too many flaws in this team. And you know what? Maybe you come back next year with Steph, Klay, Draymond, and a second lottery pick, and you're right back in it.
That's a great point. And just like we said off the jump, we're not going to overreact to one 76ers game. We can't overreact to what we saw in one Golden State Warriors squad, and we are acknowledging that injuries are playing a big role on why they are playing such sloppy basketball and not being able to keep pace. But we're just used to seeing this team at the top, an unbeatable force. How can you outscore them? How can you outshoot them? Well, it's just so weird that we are now witnessing a team that is struggling to hang in there. So you had that, you had Kevin Durant, you had the Clippers, you had the Lakers, some fun NBA tip-offs last night, Josh.
And you got Sixers tonight. on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7, and we have the best Sixers coverage on planet Earth.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question in regards to this team. What interests you the most tonight? The number one thing on your list for tonight with this team, what is it?
The bench.
The bench.
The biggest thing I want to see is the bench. I never want to talk about Ben Simmons and shooting and Embiid, Tobias. No. Because half of that stuff will work itself out, right? Half the stuff that people could cry and complain about right now, it'll work itself out as the year plays out. And we'll learn more. But I want to see, because Doc Rivers has said multiple times that he is not somebody who, is stuck with a certain group of players, right? He's a very matchup-oriented guy. So I want to see, from game 1 to game 2 this week, who's coming off the bench? Does he adjust in-game? Does he adjust from game to game? Do we have multiple starting lineups this year? There's a possibility that you may see one game is Danny Green and Seth Curry out there. Another game, maybe it's Thibault and Curry, or it's Danny Green and Shake Milton. Like, they might switch around this lineup from game to game, depending on who they're playing and depending on who the hot hand is.
That is true. I definitely am curious how they handle the starting five, and I do think it will be based off of matchups. Is the other team big? Are they small? What can you do with that? What I'm most interested in tonight, though, is when we watched preseason game 1 and heard Doc Rivers speak afterwards, he talked about how impressed he was with Joel Embiid because he was naturally scoring without anything truly being his sets. There was no action called for Joel Embiid to start going to work. Now, I'm not anticipating there being a billion sets every single game. Like, you're just going to have your standard offensive sets. You'll have more things dialed up for Joel Embiid when it comes to postseason action and things like that. But I want to see your standard generic sets for Embiid. What are some of the common themes you're seeing? Things of that. I'm focused on Embiid's role because he naturally found a way to get double-digit points cut into the basket. The ball just found him because that's how good he is. But how is Doc Rivers now going to put Joel Embiid in a certain area and say, all right, Joel, this is now your turn. This is now your possession. What are you going to do? That's what I want to see.
609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. We'll be talking to Eagles and NFL coming up at 2:30. A football at 4 at 2:30 with Andrew DiCecco today. That's not confusing at all. But, hey, you got bowl games, Sixers. It's that time of year.
It is, and it's funny you brought that up. I was going to tweet out Andrew DiCecco for football at 4 at 2:30, but I didn't want to do that because it doesn't make much sense. But I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say. Yeah, well, yes, you are the bad guy. We all knew that.
You'll never see a bad guy like this again.
No, that's for damn sure.
You know what movie I'm quoting?
What are your movies?
Come on, man.
Not a big movie guy.
I know.
Never was a big quote guy either.
I would like to know if anybody actually knows what movie I'm talking about there. 609-403-0973. Listen, you never see a bad guy like this again. Say goodnight to the bad guy. Move out of the way. Bad guy coming through. There's somebody out there who's screaming at the radio right now who knows what movie I'm talking about. But,
I'm sure there's a billion.
There's not you.
Right, just not me. Because I'm focused on some NBA tip-off.
Yeah, well, speaking of NBA tip-off, the other thing I took away from last night, they mentioned this multiple times on the broadcast on TNT. The Lakers lost the Clippers last year, game 1. And maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's something to the fact that we talked about this yesterday multiple times. Are LeBron and the Lakers just going to start out slow? Are they going to just kind of find themselves a little bit at the beginning of the year and then ramp it up as the year goes along? Because LeBron has a long history, whether it was the Cavs or the Heat or back with the Cavs, not the Lakers. His beginning of the year is nowhere as good as the middle and the end.
And when you think about even these playoff series, he loses game 1. All right, who cares? It's a feel-out game. This is just what LeBron James does. And I'm not comparing game 1 of the regular season to game 1 of a game 7 series. But
you're saying there's a pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter how it starts. It doesn't matter how it goes early on. He is such a professional. He's been doing it for so long. He figures it out as it goes. And keep in mind the short rest in terms of when they ended the season last year, winning the championship. This has been such a wonky offseason for them. They're coming right back in a short period of time. I wouldn't worry if I'm the Lakers. I think this Lakers team is better than last year's team that won the whole thing. Whether it's acquiring the big man, whether it's you got Marc Gasol as well. Yeah, you just added so much. I'm intrigued by this team. I think it's just going to take some time for them to gel and learn themselves as well. But what they did with both big men and adding pieces all around, they're going to be a team that figures it out, and then you're going to be scared. I think they can repeat for sure.
Oh, the Lakers, I think, have to be considered not just a favorite, but I think there's only a handful of favorites. I know they were arguing about this on the television broadcast last night, pre- and post-game, which the post-game was hilarious. I miss those guys on that TNT inside the NBA. That was a lot of fun last night to watch.
I'm iffy on them. Sometimes I love them, and sometimes I'm rubbed the wrong way.
I just think they're entertaining.
But I think I'm the outlier.
To me, it's great entertainment.
It just depends on the situation.
I just don't get hung up on their opinions. I just like the entertainment.
Oh, that's fine.
I find half of what they say negligible.
Sure. Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, they're taking shots at Barkley and all this because they were showing the ring ceremony, talking about how great it is to,
he's
to win in
championship
this
Barkley
thing.
because he won the match, they said.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was phenomenal. You got Shaq over there laughing
also,
before they
you see
even
them
get the
making
words
fun
out.
of him for his Durant interview when Durant gave him a one-word answer.
Yeah.
And they showed the screenshot of him right after he gave the answer.
That's so great. I loved it all. But yeah, with this Lakers team getting Harrell, making moves like that, it just adds another element to what they can provide. I thought
Schroeder was great.
Yeah, Schroeder's going to be and they even discussed how both of them seem to already have a nice flow together as a two combo.
If you notice, the problem with the Lakers last night was the team as a whole was sluggish. And they charged back in the second and third quarter, but it was almost like they kind of ran out of steam at the end because they had LeBron sitting on the bench for a long time.
He had the twisted ankle.
Was it a twisted ankle?
Well, you saw his foot. He stepped on I forget whose foot he stepped on, but
I know he stepped on somebody's foot, but
Yeah.
was it really because it was a twisted ankle because they were saying, hey, LeBron, just take it easy?
Oh, yeah, combination of both. I'm sure they said take it easy because of the
LeBron,
ankle.
you're 36 years old. Take it easy.
36, and he's still doing it at such an elite pace. It's my favorite to watch. I mean, it's just unbelievable seeing him constantly do this.
Now, after watching the games last night, the other thing I took away was another reason why what you said can't take too much from game one of a season. When the Sixers play tonight, no matter what happens, when we jump on the air tomorrow at 2 o'clock here on 97.3 ESPN, you and me, for a Christmas Eve edition, can you believe it? I know everyone's going to be like saying something about Ben Simmons and Tobias and whoever else, but I can't. I can't do it because for me, I'm just going to sit here and remind everybody that no matter what you say, it's going to change. It's going to change because that's how the NBA season is. You got a long season. By the way, the Sixers have nobody on the injury report tonight. Nobody. Everyone's available. Meanwhile, the Rockets have almost nobody available. I mean, think about the dichotomy of that. The Rockets going in tonight where John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, apparently contact tracing. This is the latest from Woj. I love this. Getting haircuts. Because they were getting haircuts, the contact tracing from somebody getting a positive test result led to them getting contact traced. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah, that's bad work.
I mean, that's where we are right now.
That's bad work.
I mean, at some point, it's like, man, the NBA, I understand, is trying over the top to make sure this season is played. But if you're going to have contact tracing because someone got a haircut, knock somebody out for a game or two, ugh.
Yeah, that's bad. If you're starting with just a haircut, where does it end? You know, like at what point, where do you draw the line if getting a haircut is out of whack? So you're telling me by the NBA postseason, everyone's going to have long hair, can't get a haircut, can't do this, can't do that? I mean, that's absurd. What, do you have to have your wife or your mother shave your head for you or whatever the case may be? Would that be contact tracing too?
Well, I mean, some of these guys are getting a little too much with the cornrows too. I mean, you see some of the cornrow designs last night. At some point, it's like, guys.
Yeah, we touched on Steph Curry's and we touched on Matisse Thybulle. Now, it's
Steph
not
was extra tight last night.
It's not
he made it tighter.
He
What
did.
the heck is that?
He did. Now, this isn't in the same category, but did you see Jalen Hurts' new cut before he got that start last week? It was going all around Twitter. As soon as it popped up, everyone said Eagles by 500 because it was such a nice haircut. I guess you did not see that picture.
I mean, I saw it, but I didn't have that reaction.
Well, how did you not? That's what they call fresh, Josh.
Because it was a good-looking haircut. I react to bad things more so than good.
Yeah, but it's
Like
almost
most
as if
people.
it's a statement. Like, oh, you're in trouble. The other team's in trouble when you see a haircut like that.
But are they?
Yeah,
Really?
sure. He had a hell of a game.
He had a great game. I think it was because of the hair. I think because he's great.
Spoiling all the fun, Josh.
Well, I do have that effect on people.
Yes, you do.
609-403-0973, theplaysugarhouse.com. Text board, he's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Sports Bash being brought to you by Recovery Centers of America, drug and alcohol addiction treatment centers located in Mays Landing, New Jersey, and Devon, PA. We'll talk with Andrew DiCecco about the Eagles, the NFL coming up in about less than 15 minutes from now. Text board is open, 609-403-0973 on theplaysugarhouse.com. Text board 609-403-0973. Now, the other side of the Sixers conversation is how much of how we look at the Sixers is going to be impacted by the Eagles. Because how many anytime hotlines did we get in the last several weeks? I can't wait for Sixers season to start because the Eagles were playing so bad. Then Hurts comes in. Now the team's got a little life, got a little juice going. So can the Eagles maybe win a couple games, overshadow the Sixers a little bit, and that'll maybe make whatever happens with the Sixers a little bit less impactful? Or the opposite direction, if the Eagles just lose out, does the Sixers' intensity ratchet up so much that everyone just overreacts because the Eagles got them all just frustrated?
I think it'll be depending on how it plays out. For example, if the Eagles have life, because there is still a small percentage, but there's a percentage that they can still get into that postseason. If there is life, I think the Eagles will overshadow everything about early basketball. It would be similar to pre-COVID, where in the world where everyone said the NBA season doesn't start until December. It'll be that natural October, November vibe where, okay, it's background noise. But until football is over, that's when the NBA really takes off. So I think it's all depending on what happens this week, what happens with Washington, what happens with these other teams, and that will tell the story on how this fan base feels about the Sixers moving forward. But I think naturally there's excitement because of the new regime, because of Daryl Morey, because of Doc Rivers, because this team makes sense on paper strategically, X's and O's and skill set wise, that you're going to have that juice regardless. And we've been having just one sport. I think just the fact that you're adding another sport to the mix is going to be refreshing and new. Even though it's NFL football and that's king, adding another sport just is different, especially in a time like this.
It's a level of relief, is it not, to have something else to watch and talk about in the city? Because,
no doubt.
Listen, guys like you and me love sports. We'll watch anything. But for the regular, just a diehard Philly sports fan, you need something else sometimes, especially when you're used to having other things. You know what I mean?
We'd have 3 teams going right now normally.
Yeah. And one of them is usually still the Eagles, still dominating headlines, but you at least have the rest of the week. You may have Sixers on a Tuesday night, Flyers on a Wednesday night, Sixers on a Friday night, Flyers on a Saturday afternoon, and then Eagles on Sunday.
Right. Imagine coming in here on a Wednesday to talk a little Flyers shutout against the Carolina Panthers. Come on. Or, excuse me, the Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes. I just combined the 2 squads.
Well,
but imagine that.
The Panthers might have to fill in on the ice if there's COVID issues.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. But, the juices are flowing. You know what I mean? Look, January 13th, you get Flyers. So I am excited for the sports calendar to start transitioning and moving forward because we need it. We need as much as we can get right now.
I'm so happy the Sixers are back. I really am. It's nice to stop having to anticipate. You know what I mean? It's nice to actually see them now they're on the court. No more conjecture, no more what ifs, no more fill in the blank person on Twitter or the text board at 609-403-0973, assuming things that may or may not ever happen. You know what I mean? We can just see them play now. Now, do you think this team is ranked where in the Eastern Conference?
The way I see them right now is I see them in that 4 area. Now, I think that there's a 1 and a 2 in Milwaukee, and I don't know if the Brooklyn Nets are going to be there. As I've been stating, there's always teams that fall on their face a little bit. There'll be some bumps and bruises. But I do feel that there is this mix of, if you look at Boston, Miami, Philadelphia, I think they're in the same range. And those 3 squads will be fighting for 3, 4, and 5. But right now, the way I see it is I think the Sixers are more in that 4 range than top 3 range. But if you look at those 3 teams, I think they're going to be the ones competing to see where 3, 4, and 5 lies.
Yeah, before last night, my main 2 at the top of the conference were the Bucks and the Heat. And then after those two, I was a little conflicted about who else. Like,
I don't even know if the Heat are, I'm not saying they're bad because they're clearly not bad, but how much of last year's product of the bubble, not going on the road for playoff games, how much of that played a role in them getting all the way to the NBA Finals?
it played a role, but not the role. I think that team still had a chance if they would have played that way during regular circumstances. They could have still gone to the NBA Finals. I think they may have won a game or two extra because of the environment and because they were hyper-focused. But culture is culture. Like, you either have it or you don't. So I think that culture is repeatable.
I'm not disagreeing with you. A little bit of me felt, though, that finals run had that this is their year type feeling where everything just went right. Everything was solid for them. They had great flow. And I don't know if you can always duplicate that feel. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to fall off completely. They're still going to be in the second, third round. They're still going to be battling with these top teams. As I said, they're in that range of 3, 4, 5. So they're still a hell of a basketball team. But some of it just felt like everything went smooth for them last season. And I don't know if it's going to go smooth for them every single season. But you are right when it comes to their head coach, when it comes to their front office. They have a standard and they have this professionalism about them that it would make you lean towards, okay, they can totally take strides forward with what they did last year. But a lot of it, just like 2017 with the Eagles, it felt right. Everything felt right. Well, with the Heat last year, it just felt right for them, even though they fell short to LeBron.
The other reason why I like the Heat this year is because I don't like the Celtics.
So just because you don't like the Celtics, you're going Heat?
That knocks them down the rung. To
It
me,
does.
The Raptors and Celtics both lost major depth pieces. Both those teams lost major players in what made them who they were. Because to me, when I watched the Raptors and the Celtics last year, to me it was, I know that if one guy isn't on, another guy can step up. But now Toronto, no more Serge Ibaka. Boston, no more Gordon Hayward. You're losing guys off the bench. You're asking guys on the bench to move in the line. I mean, Brad Wanamaker's playing for the Warriors now. He was a big part of the Celtics last year. So, to me, I'm knocking the Raptors and the Celtics down a notch, whereas the Heat, I can knock them up into that place.
So if you knock down the Celtics, where does that put the Sixers in your eyes? Because I answered that 4 range. I think they're in that 4 or 5 range.
I like the 4 or 5 range because, to me, I think that if the Nets can maintain some sort of version of what we saw last night, they're the 2 or 3 seed easily. And then the other one goes to the Heat. So to me, it's those 3 at the top. And then after that, it's like the Sixers, the Pacers, some version of the Celtics, all in that like 4 to 6 range.
Okay, so we're on the same page. We're in that same atmosphere, and I think that's right. And look, we can be proven wrong if this team, sometimes it's not about, it's going to be big with Ben and Joel, of course. They're going to have to adapt and change and totally take a next step in both of their careers. But sometimes it is about flow, and it is about having the right guys surrounding players. So if those two step up in the right way, I know we're all questioning who's that third star, I don't know. Maybe having Danny Green and Seth Curry and that spacing is enough to allow these two stars that we're watching to take that jump that we've been looking for.
The other thing is, if Doc Rivers gets what he wants, that number 1 defense in the league, right? I can totally see them just wrecking certain teams certain nights. Like, I could see them going against certain Eastern Conference teams. Like,
are you talking regular season, though? Or?
Yeah, regular season.
Okay.
Well, we're talking about 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, so you're talking about getting those regular season wins.
A team like the Hawks, if they get the Hawks early enough in the season, they don't have the chemistry yet with all those new guys. I can totally see the Sixers beating them like 110 to like 88 or something. Like some like real rough night for the Hawks because they don't have the chemistry yet.
Doesn't it seem like them and the Orlando Magic, though, no matter what, just find ways to beat the Sixers?
Maybe not this year.
I hope you're right.
It's no longer Brett Brown.
Was that the reason why, then?
I don't know.
Okay, you came off that at the top of your head, huh?
Yeah,
You're like, oh, what do I say?
that.
Brett Brown. That's always the answer for some of these people out there.
That's why I thought of it, because I remember Sixers Twitter, everything's Brett Brown's fault.
Right.
Brett Brown, Howie Roseman, they're wanting to say they could go save a kitten from a tree. They could save the world from cancer, and everybody still hates them.
Yeah, it's funny. People have been going back at me because, I'm someone who, I didn't destroy Brett Brown like most. Therefore, that means somehow I'm his biggest supporter, which makes no sense whatsoever because I clearly criticized the guy for what he is.
Anybody who knows you knows that makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense at all. But with Brett, I get this a lot. Well, how come he's not a head coach somewhere? Well, you're the same person who wants Stan Van Gundy, same person that wants Mark Jackson. They're in the booth for a reason. They weren't getting job opportunities, so it's the same thing. And he's still getting paid by the Sixers. So if I'm Brett Brown, guess what? I'm putting my feet up. My ass is on the couch. Well, I'm getting paid. He's still under contract. He's still getting paid money.
I'd be going to the beach. I'd be
kicking
out
it
with a nice drink, just put my feet up.
Why would I go through the travel during this year, too? The traveling. I want to be with my family. He's not even doing the Australia team this season. So, look, I mean, there's plenty of variables to look at Brett Brown and say that there's reasons why he's not just getting a job the next year. And that's fine. Doesn't mean he's a horrendous coach.
No. He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. 1 hour show leading you up to college football, top of the hour here on 97.3 ESPN. But speaking of football, coming up next, a special edition of Football at 4 at 2:30 with Andrew DiCecco joins us coming up next. Get more on the Eagles and the NFC East here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
Happy holidays to all of our listeners.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas from 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Yell along with Hunter Brody here on 97.3 ESPN. Text board is open at 609-403-0973. You know, I'm a little disappointed in the listeners, by the way.
Why's that?
Nobody has texted in. They know what movie I was talking about.
Oh. Did we get any wrong answers, though?
We get no answers.
Oh, so no one went.
All the texts
that makes me feel better.
All the texts are about the Sixers right now. To talk about the Sixers to open the show. But nobody has anything to say about the movie quote I gave.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better about myself as if I didn't screw up here. Although, I mean, I guess all of us have screwed up, but there's no way it can be all of us. It's got to be you. We need to look back at the primary source.
I told you, I'm the bad guy. You'll never see a bad guy like this again.
Full circle.
Say goodnight to the bad guy. Bad guy coming through. The guy who's not a bad guy is Andrew DiCecco joins us. A special edition of Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Make sure you follow Andrew and his Eagles coverage on Twitter at @DiCecco NFL, and he joins us right now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew, how you doing today?
Josh, I'm doing great, man. Getting ready for the Christmas holiday. Hope you guys are doing well.
Now, before we get to the Christmas holiday, we got to talk about the Eagles because they're going to be playing the Cowboys this weekend. And when you and I talked on Monday, we got a line to the offense. So today we want to touch a little bit more on the defense as we're looking ahead. You know, one of the things from the defense that we saw, and I think we're going to have to look forward to this week, has been the news that Darius Slay has been cleared of concussion protocol. He's going to practice. So what does getting Darius Slay back in the Eagles lineup mean for them this Sunday?
It means everything for the back end. I mean, you talk about a player of Darius Slay's caliber, you can put him on any top receiver, and he's going to eliminate that side of the field, where you can let a guy like a Michael Jacquet, who's stepped up recently, he can be that number 2 corner, and suddenly everybody's playing where their athletic ability and talent level is really best slotted, which is, everybody kind of bumps down a position on the depth chart. And it allows Jim Schwartz to do a little bit more with his defense, be a little bit more flexible with his coverages, maybe do some exotic blitzing. It frees him up to be a little bit more liberal in what he can do.
What was your overall assessment on the defense? Because, look, there were 33 points on the board. One, there was that block punt, though. There was also a safety. They forced 3 turnovers. And knowing that they were so limited, I mean, I see why people would still rip the defense. But at the same time, I thought they did a hell of a job.
Yeah, I saw your tweet, and I was in full agreement with that, man. Considering what they had to work with, they were extremely undermanned, and I thought that they held up well. Look, a guy like Michael Jacquet, did he give up his catches? Sure. But you know what? For the most part, he held his ground. I thought he was physical in coverage. He showed off his length. He had 2 passes defended. He had a sack. He showed he can play a little bit, and nobody really knew much about him going into this game. Then you had the young kids, Marcus Epps. He gets razzed a lot by the fan base, but like it or not, the Eagles are particularly high on him, and he's a sharp-minded football player. He's tough. and he knows where to be. And the only way he's going to get better is by playing. And he played a lot. He played every single defensive snap, all 68 snaps. Kayvon Wallace, everybody's been pounding the table for him to get on the field. He did. And I thought that, and then the defensive line really needed to step up given the, depleted back end. And they did. And I thought that they kind of held it together given the kind of mash unit that they had to work with.
Now, saying with all that said, what did you take away from what Jim Schwartz did with the defense? Because it seemed like there was about 4 catches. The 2 catches by DeAndre Hopkins. There was the catch by Larry Fitzgerald in the end zone. And then there was the other catch by Dan Arnold where it just felt like there was no defense for those catches. And it felt like in some ways the Cardinals' offense beat the Eagles' defense, not because the Eagles' defense played bad, but because the Cardinals' offense just happened to have these amazing plays.
Yeah, and those are plays that guys like, a legendary Larry Fitzgerald or DeAndre Hopkins, who's arguably the top receiver in football. He's certainly up there with Devontae Adams of Green Bay. I mean, these guys are upper echelon players that are going to routinely make those plays. I mean, you look at the touchdown catch that Larry Fitzgerald had. The coverage wasn't bad. I mean, there's just no way to defend that. I mean, that was just a phenomenal play on his end. Like I said, I thought that those guys battled, and a lot of times young players like that, they need that experience because moving forward, they may be counted on to play a lot. I mean, you look at the cap situation next year, and some of these guys, like a Michael Jacquet, might be having a big role next year. And, they were playing against a really, really solid receiving corps. Don't forget Christian Kirk, who's their deep threat. And, I thought for the most part, they gave up some of their catches, but they definitely, going into the game, you heard, Kyler Murray's going to throw for 500 yards. DeAndre Hopkins going to have 200 yards. And you know what? To those guys' credit, they definitely stepped up to the challenge.
Doug Peterson's nickname is December Doug for a reason. So if you go back to 2018, he had a great stretch with Nick Foles at the end of the year. 2019, a great stretch with Carson Wentz. 2020, you're starting to see better football with Jalen Hurts. And I'm not trying to say that, it's only Doug Peterson. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is playing significantly better than Carson Wentz. But how much stock do you put into this team is just accustomed to playing their best football this late?
Yeah, and I think that speaks to Doug Peterson and the fact that he has that locker room. He hasn't lost anyone, given the kind of peaks and valleys that's come with this season. He's really held it together, and guys play hard for him. And I think once you see one win, like you saw against the Saints, that kind of jumpstart, and they realized a lot of these veterans are like, hey, you know what? We have talent. There's talent here. Let's see if we can make a run at this thing. It's just the division's still up for grabs. And I think you get a lot of guys that buy in and take that mindset, and they get the new energy from a new quarterback being inserted in there. And if you're the defense, you got to be feeling pretty good about Jalen Hurts because you know that when they get a stop, our offense has a chance now. We're not going to have to go back out there in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like it kind of it picks up the whole team, and I think everybody's starting to buy in and see what they have, and that's why you're seeing everyone giving maximum effort. And I think that's kind of been the story with all those every year. It's a break here or there, but it kind of jumpstarts whatever funk they're in. It kind of gets them out of it and gets them headed in the right direction. And I think that's what they have a shot now. It's an outside shot, but they're in the same position now. And if they keep that momentum going, they're going to sneak in.
Andrew DiCecco joining us here on the Boardwalk on the hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Content contributor for InsideTheBirds.com. Eagles writer for 97.3 ESPN.com. You can follow him on Twitter at @DiCecco NFL. Want to get your thoughts on Brandon Graham. First Pro Bowl. Jim Schwartz said there were some tears shed during the coaches meeting and has reacted to Brandon Graham getting his first Pro Bowl bid. A big deal for a guy who has arguably been one of the most consistent contributors on the defensive line for the last few years. What does it mean for Brandon Graham to finally get a Pro Bowl selection?
Brandon Graham is such a consistent player, arguably the Eagles' most consistent player this season. You look at where his career kind of the twists and turns of his career. When he first started out, he was viewed as a bust. You got this guy who's short, squatty with short arms. He got hurt. He wasn't really productive. You see Earl Thomas, he went through that thing where he was just that public enemy number one among the fan base. And he played his way out of it, and he became a leader on defense, and he made crucial, franchise-altering plays over his career. And this season, when everything was kind of going awry, he was that glue that held that defense together. He stepped up in that leadership role, and he made at least one or two plays every week that kept the Eagles in those games. And he had the pulse of the locker room, and he never wavered, no matter what. And he answered every question. He's a true leader. And I think that when you see the way that his career has went, he's been snubbed every time. He doesn't have those double-digit sack numbers. But if you ask any offensive tackle out there, you hear them on the top 100 players and everything. And he's just a handful to block. He's got that bull rush. He plays with leverage. He has a relentless motor, and it's just a shame that he never got the recognition that he deserved. But now that's changed, and I think you saw so many different coaches around the league that felt strongly about his ability, and now it's finally come to fruition.
The Eagles activated Deshaun Jackson's 21-day window, and I know some are saying, well, why even put him out there? He's not going to be the future of this team, this and that. Well, guess what? Alshon Jeffrey isn't either. Jason Peters isn't either, and this organization has thrown them in. So I ask you, what should we expect out of this move by the Eagles?
It's kind of, to me, I view it as, what's the point? It's not a given that he'd be ready for this week. You saw that when Zach Ertz was they activated his 21-day practice window. He didn't play the first week back that he was eligible. I think the Eagles would be better off giving a guy like Quez Watkins those reps, getting him. If they enter the playoffs, he might be one of those guys that you have to count on. And I think that he showed something last week, and he added a spark to the offense. And somebody like him, or even a young guy like John Hightower, see if you can get him back active and get some reps for him and with Jalen Hurts. And I don't really see the benefit of bringing a Deshaun Jackson back, especially if, depending on how this week goes. But he certainly has that game-breaking speed and ability. But I just think that the Eagles, given their situation and outlook, I think that they need to move forward with the young players.
For more coverage on the Eagles, go follow Andrew on Twitter at DiCecco NFL. Of course, no football for today. We are only on until 3 o'clock. So Andrew was nice enough to join us at an earlier time today. Make sure you follow him. Check out all his Eagles coverage at 97.3 ESPN.com and at InsideTheBirds.com. As all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Andrew, appreciate the time and the insights. And if we don't talk to you before then, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Of course, Andrew here, thanks to the Inside the Birds podcast. Talked to Jeff Mosher yesterday. Got a little more insight about the defense today from Andrew, Hunter.
Yeah, you know me and the defense. I'm big on the whole Schwartz thing. I think the Schwartz conversation is so interesting because in 16 games, there might be, let's just say four games where Jim Schwartz has a tough day at the office. But what does that mean? Well, there's 12 games where he's keeping you involved. But those 4 games to Eagles fans, get rid of him, fire this guy, he's awful, he's pathetic. I find it crazy that people feel the way that they do about Schwartz. I just can't comprehend it.
Well, I think that the people who feel that way tend to also be the same people who are angry about other things. Like, it's almost like there's a part of certain Philadelphia fans, not all of them, because I'm not going to lump everyone in the same boat. We're not a monolith here. This is people on their own individuals. But there is a group of fans who they almost look for something to complain about. You know what I mean? Like, nothing Schwartz will be good enough, or nothing Howie will be good enough, or nothing Ben Simmons will be good enough, or nothing Brett Brown will do is good enough, or fill in the blank is never good enough because they're not. Jim Schwartz isn't Jim Johnson, and Brett Brown isn't Larry Brown, and Howie Roseman isn't. I don't even know who people think Howie Roseman's supposed to be. Like, I don't even know who. There's no real comparable, but he's not whoever they think they want him to be. It's the idea that they hate Schwartz not because Schwartz is actually bad or a problem or anything. It's because Jim Schwartz doesn't fit their idealized view of what he's supposed to do.
Well, I love when Jim Schwartz sends the blitz. I mean, I don't love that this is the outcome, but he sends the blitz, it gets shredded. Come on, Jim, that's not the time to blitz. Hold on a second. You've been screaming for Schwartz to blitz for his entire tenure here. Now he sends the blitz. It doesn't work, and it's his fault that's when he decided to blitz?
You know what's funny?
Come on.
Well, the other thing is funny is, so I used to cover high school sports for years. I did play-by-play for high school sports for almost 6 years, okay? Well, actually, was it? Yeah, it was a total of 6 years. And I did high school basketball for 5. And in the last few years, I've worked here at 97.3 in studio role for high school sports. I can't name you any point in time where I remember people constantly calling for high school kids to blitz the quarterback, right? But the person acts like Jim Schwartz is so much different than what happens in high school or any other level of sports. Like, you don't hear people complaining, man, I wish Temple would blitz the quarterback more. No, it's only with the Eagles. Like, you watch a Steelers game. You ever hear anybody screaming on Twitter, man, they got to blitz the quarterback? No, it's only with the Eagles. Why is it only Jim Schwartz has to blitz and nobody else?
I think one big thing, too, that comes with this conversation, and Gil hit on this before. You talk about the way the game is played now. Offense, creative minds. You have this new philosophy. Things are flowing. You got a lot of pre-snap movement. There's a lot of innovative stuff that's happening on the offensive side of the ball. It's not the same with defense. Defense kind of is what it is. You have your style. You have these guys that have been around the league. You don't go pick and pluck your way through the college programs for this new defensive 30-year-old guy like you do with, say, a Sean McVay or these offensive minds. So when you have a guy that has success and is in a spot where you can count on his philosophy, is it a good idea to just get rid of that just to make change? I don't know. I mean, I'm with Mosto. There are flaws in his plan, but for the most part, he gets the job done.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig. Sports Bash today being brought to you by Recovery Centers of America, drug and alcohol addiction treatment centers located in Mays Landing, New Jersey, and Devon, PA. We'll wrap up the show. Coming up next, your texts. We got a bunch of them to get to. 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea City.
Happy holidays to all of our listeners.
Ho, ho, ho! I downloaded the app. Now I take my favorite station all over the world.
Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
From 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill along with Hunter Brody here a couple days before Christmas. By the way, happy Festivus to everybody out there, all you Seinfeld folks. I heard Dominic Foxworth say Seinfeld is the White Martin. How do you feel about that? Thoughts?
I have no thoughts.
Yeah, you don't care?
Nope.
Yeah, all right. By the way, let me tell you about my friends at weightliftinghq.com as you get ready for your 2021 goals for your health and fitness, or you're trying to help someone else in your life keep up with your health and fitness. Don't miss the great high-end weightlifting and fitness equipment available. They'll be delivered right to your home, like bench and squat racks, kettlebells, dumbbells, cardio fitness machines, resistance bands, and more. You can't beat the local customer service and incredibly competitive prices at weightliftinghq.com. Code radio10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Is code 10 radio10 for 10% off at weightliftinghq.com. Keith, the FedEx guy, got it. Just saying hello to my little friend over there on ESPN Radio. Scarface is the movie.
Yeah, I knew it was something that was so obvious that I should be ashamed of, but look, I just don't care. You know, I understand the movie was late, or it was early 80s, before my time. I've seen it, obviously, but I'm not a movie quote guy. Quotes never stood in my head. People can, bang out an entire movie and just quote the whole thing. I don't know how you do that. That's just me.
So say good night to the bad guy. Go on.
There you go. Tony Montana, Scarface.
Yeah, I understand that this is shameful on my part, but I'm not a guy who goes back and watches movies millions of times. I'm going Curb Your Enthusiasm millions of times, Friends millions of times, Jersey Shore, Love Island, you name it, bad reality TV, the Kardashians. That's what I do. None of this Scarface stuff. I watch the real stuff. Khloe, Kim.
You're ridiculous.
The Kardashians.
You're ridiculous.
No, I'm not.
Texter says, guys, you're sleeping on the Hawks. I think they're going to make a big jump this year. They got so much young talent. Trae Young is a superstar. You got Cam Reddish, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter. They picked up Rondo and Bogdanovich. They will be better than the Sixers, the texter says.
Is that texter from Atlanta? Is Trae Young a superstar yet? I don't know if I can say he's a superstar.
Well, he's an all-star.
Yeah, but that's a huge difference.
True.
How about this texter here, though, that says, I love this. Rodgers has always destroyed Jim Schwartz's defense. It's so vanilla. Rodgers destroys everyone's defense.
Right. What defense stops Aaron Rodgers?
Great question.
I can't name one. He's Hunter Brody, at Broads81 on Twitter. I'm at Josh Hennig on Twitter. We'll be back tomorrow, 2 o'clock again. We'll be on for more than an hour tomorrow. Recap the Sixers, get you ready for Eagles, Cowboys, all coming up tomorrow on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. The RL Carrier Bowl is next. Sixers basketball at 7 tonight. Have a good day, everybody.